Okay, this is section 5.4 for AW10, where we're going to talk about the sine ratio. So for all three trig ratios, we need at least two pieces of information. You need to have one side and an angle. The corresponding side you're trying to find is what you're going to pick your ratio off of. So for our sine ratio, our formula is sine of theta, so sine of our angle, is equal to our opposite side divided by the hypotenuse side. Like any algebraic equation, we're going to use this when we know one of our sides, but we're missing another side. We can then fill in two of our three pieces of information. We can then isolate and get that missing side by itself, and then plug in and solve into the equation. When it comes to your trigonomic ratios, we want to make sure your calculator is set to degrees. Depending on your calculator, this changes. For the TI-30s, there's a button at the top that says DRG. This can basically set it between degrees, radians, and gradients. We're going to make sure ours is set to degrees. A lot of calculators, as a default, if you hit the reset button on the back of your calculator, the reset is set to degrees, or the default is degrees. A lot of it is just playing around in your settings. The way you can do this, you can hit any of our functions and put in a number like, 25, and we say, okay, that's 0.4256. If I change this to radians, take that same equation, I'm going to get a different number. So we want to make sure your calculator is always set to the proper degrees and settings. If you can't figure out how to do it on your calculator, send me an email or Google the model of your calculator. It should tell you pretty quickly. So, when we're actually solving trigonomic equations, there's basically three steps we have to do. Your step one, no matter what you're going to do, is you're going to want to label your triangle based off of your angle. So based off of our bottom angle here of 31 degrees, our unknown is our opposite. 17 is our hypotenuse. Technically our bottom is the adjacent, but we don't need that because we're trying to find our unknown side, which is opposite, and we know the hypotenuse. We're then going to pick our formula. So based off of SOHCAHTOA, we want to think about what we know or what we have. We have a hypotenuse. We're trying to find the opposite. So we look at our three trig functions and which one of them deals with opposite and hypotenuse. So we've picked the right formula for sine. We're then going to solve the formula. So you first start by writing it out. So sine theta equals our opposite divided by the hypotenuse. Once we've written it out, we're going to fill it in with the information we know. Sine of 31 equals the opposite divided by the hypotenuse, which is 17. I'm going to type in my calculator, sine of 31. It's good to keep as many decimal places as you can, so I'm going to float it in my calculator, which keeps all of them, but just so we understand, sine of 31 is really 0.5150 equals our opposite divided by 17. We're trying to get the opposite by itself, so using algebra, we're going to take the 17 and get it to the other side. I do that by the opposite operation of division, which is times both sides by 17, because that will make this cancel out. 17 times 0.510 gives us an opposite side of 8.75. And if we're dealing with meters, it would now be in meters, is our opposite side length. Okay. I'm actually going to change this one up a bit. We're not going to know what our hypotenuse is, but we are going to know that the height of the tree is, we'll say, 20 meters. It's a 20-meter tree. So we start it the exact same way we started last time. Label your triangle first. We know this is the opposite of our angle of 47. This is our hypotenuse. And technically this is the adjacent. We think of SOHCAHTOA to pick our right formula. That uses our opposite and the adjacent. Again, sine uses opposite and adjacent. So we can go from there. So sine theta equals the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. We fill in our formula. Sine of 47 equals our opposite, which is 20, divided by our hypotenuse. When I punch in sine of 47 into my calculator, I get 0.7313 equals 20 divided by our hypotenuse. Our goal is to get the hypotenuse by itself. I can first start by timesing both sides by the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse divided by hypotenuse will cancel out. My new formula is now the hypotenuse times 0.7313 equals 20. This is still not by itself, so now I'm going to divide both sides by this 0.7313. In order to isolate and get the hypotenuse by itself. I now know the hypotenuse has a length of 27.35 meters. It's not too bad. Okay, try it again. So in this triangle, we're going to label it based off of our uppermost corner. So now this is no longer the opposite, but this 10 feet would be our opposite side. This unknown is still the longest side, which is the hypotenuse. And this side length is the adjacent. Looking at our three trig ratios, which uses opposite and hypotenuse? Sine does. So I can fill out my formula. Sine theta equals the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. I'm then going to fill in my formula, sine of 60 degrees equals an opposite of 10 divided by the hypotenuse, which we do not know. Sine of 60 is 0.86. And if you noticed last time, when I had my hypotenuse or my unknown on the bottom of my fraction, I would then times both sides by the hypotenuse and then divide both sides by 0.86. The shortcut in this, when my unknown is on the bottom, is I can swap these two numbers. You can also do it the long way, but this will basically, it skips a few steps for you. My last step is to go 10 divided by 0.866, and I get a hypotenuse length of 11.55 meters. Oh, feet. Like so. that is it for 5.4. Your two questions is you have to solve each triangle. So first triangle is you have to find our unknown based off of 40 degrees with a side length of 20. And our second question is you have to find the unknown based on an angle of 31 meters with an opposite length of 5 meters. You want to find this unknown, not that's just, yeah. If you have any questions or concerns, I will be available on Tuesdays and Thursdays for tutorial. Good luck.